Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. And the podcast has been gaining a lot of traction and lots of people have been listening. So I am excited because now I'm actually interviewing people from all types of jobs and environments all around the world. And it's interesting hearing how people have different perspectives of what fulfillment and happiness is. On today, we're going to be speaking to one of my favorite people in the whole world. And she is a high performance mind coach. And what does that mean? Well, she takes people's achievements, sport or business, or people at the Olympics, and she gets them to visualize and to really use their mind in a way to perform it in a positive way. So I want to welcome everyone to Emma Murray, the beautiful Emma Murray. Hi, Em.
Hi, Joey. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so really. You and I have been trying to catch up for so long, and it's good that I get to see you at least rather than imagine you in my mind. You look great. So thank you for coming on the show. I mean, I remember meeting you for the first time, and it was always inspired by you. And the whole theme of today of this podcast is that fulfillment and success and happiness can come in different things for different people. But I remember looking at you and just thinking, you are, it was just natural for you. It seemed like it was part of who you are to always look for that rather than to be pessimistic. So can we start there? Like, how do you interpret fulfillment?
Like that to me is a question that I don't think about very much. Like, I feel like, my personal story means that I'm on this train that is, fast track to get more. And when I say that, I think you have to understand my personal story, not more money or more, fame or more riches, but just to, I'm constantly driving to get more support for my son, more recovery for my son, more safety for my family, more. So I don't ever stop to think about, am I fulfilled? And if I pause on that, I absolutely have fulfillment in there, but I want to make it clear that I don't go out each day to strive for fulfillment.
No, well, that's what I meant is that I think that you're the person to be interviewed that doesn't. That was exactly how I was expecting you to answer. I was expecting to say, I don't know if I think about that, Joe. Well, it's because you're the type of person that does it without realizing it. It's as if it's part of your body, right? And so other people have to obtain it. You didn't have to. You already had it. And I'm just wondering if that came with you being an athlete earlier in your life. Do you think as an athlete you were taught or you were teaching yourself to always work hard to get to that goal?
Well, I think if you are an athlete, so I work with a lot of elite athletes, whether it's Olympians or motorsport drivers or football players, what they have in common is a natural drive to, do more than the other person and be better than the other person and push themselves. And I think from being an athlete, it was not so much, I'm not driven by perfectionism. I'm driven by this belief that I can do hard things, that nothing is too hard for me.
Oh, who taught you that, Em? How did you learn that? Because you know that people are going to be listening and saying, oh my God, that sounds great, but how do I do that? Do you think that it can be taught, or is that part of you?
I think it was definitely part of me. I don't remember ever being taught it or being really hopeless at something and then, pushing through and learning this great lesson. I just think I have an innate perspective of I can do that. Why I can have a crack at that. And I have this tool. You probably taught me the tool, to be honest. Like you mentioned that until I met you, Joey, I wasn't even a coach. That you, I literally, again, coming back to that, well, I can do hard things. I was in a career that I didn't like. I knew very clearly that there were things about my career I didn't like. I didn't like electronic diaries. Don't get me wrong. Like, I did not like that I had to have an electronic diary. I did not like sales targets. I did not like being micromanaged. So I knew that very clearly. And I remember literally I'd always had an interest in mindfulness. I'd studied mindfulness. For my own personal use. But I remember reading an article one day I was away for a weekend with some friends. I read an article about a lady who had done the same mindfulness course as me. And she was now running this whole mindfulness program at one of the private schools. And I literally thought to myself, well, oh, okay, I can make a business of this thing that I practice, right? And so I think I'm willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. So I immediately looked up a course. I thought about what course would work well with mindfulness. I thought of hypnotherapy. I looked up the course. I rang, the course. I made an appointment. And I remember that I had to go to the first weekend, and it doubled over with my daughter's Head of the River rowing carnival that she had worked for years for this one carnival. And I remember it crossed over, and it was like, I miss seeing her race, or I go and do this thing which I know can take me where I need to go. And so I went to the course. Now, people would look at that and go, oh, you bad parent. But it's like, I'm teaching my child that if you want to change your life, you actually have to take action on that.
Oh my God.
And my child is not rowing to please me. My child is rowing for her fulfillment and for her purpose and for her, sense of achievement. That's not about me. And she doesn't need me there to get that out of it. So I remember that thought process very clearly. So sometimes I think I'm weird. Sometimes I think,
no, you're not weird. You're a guru.
Every parent think like that. Wouldn't every parent think the best gift I can give my kid is to take action on changing this career I'm not happy with?
No, well, the way that you described that you're teaching your daughter to be inspired to change their own life is such an amazing message that I feel is lacking. So, you're not weird. You're special, and everyone else is weird, my darling.
But the point of that story was, so I rock up at that course, and you are the lecturer, one of the lecturers there, but probably the lecturer that I connect most with. And, I not only had you as a lecturer, I then, worked with you as your client, because I identified that you're someone that could help me. You're someone that could help me on this journey. And again, I took action on that and just literally.
I remember you. I mean, the thing is, I was a lecturer there for a very long time. And I think there's only about 3 or 4 people that I can say I did it. And you're one of them. I mean, I remember you coming in and just being so adamant, I'm going to do this, this, this. And I'm just sitting there because I do this every day. I'm going, okay. And then I'm going, oh my God, she did it. And now I brag about you and tell everyone about you because you are living that inspiration. And so, what do you do when you can't get it? How do you handle not getting something? Or do you never put that into the equation?
No, I mean, I think you can always get a version of it in some way, can't you?
That's interesting. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I believe that too, but you do realize that most of the population don't believe that. That they see it as failure rather than you see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I just course correct and just go again, sort of thing.
Yeah. So again, was that always in you, that you've always been able to see something and never give up? Because that's what you're saying.
Well, my nickname growing up from my family was the White Ant, because I would just keep boring my way in until I got what I wanted.
Yeah.
I don't look at things too deeply. Like, I'm like, if that doesn't work, I just shuffle over here and do something over there.
Yeah. So what do you call that? Because again, the guy I interviewed this morning was totally different because he's seeing it from a different perspective. So this is important. So people listening that identify with you can say, okay, so would you say that that's just that you're just really you're like mega focused? Or is it more about you achieving some sort of satisfaction?
It's not, I'm not sure if it's easier, any of those things. It's like, so for instance, at the moment, I'm finding I've hit a little bit of a brick wall with working with athletes. I've worked in football for a very long time, and I feel like I'm hearing the same stuff coming out of my mouth. I've worked in, I understand performance from an athlete's perspective, inside out and back to front. Like, I just get it. And so I just wake up one day and I'm like, oh, I feel like, am I at my limit there? And so then I go, well, what's another industry that is really performance-based? Trading. Okay, I'm going to look at trading. So by lunchtime, I've called the CEO of a trading company and gone, hey, can I meet with you to pick your brains?
Yeah. So
And
you're totally adaptable, aren't you?
just in action mode. I just keep, I live, you know, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about my personal story, so I'll let you sort of introduce that. But
If you need to bring it in, because I'm not going to bring it up, I'm just going to ask questions and you just talk about whatever you want.
So, well, my personal story is, you know, maybe 2 years after meeting you, possibly, which is 5 years ago now. I'm a mother of 4 children, and my son, who was 13 at the time, 2 weeks shy of his 14th birthday, he went to the beach with friends and he jumped from a pier and he broke his C5, C6 vertebrae and sustained a spinal cord injury. And that left him quadriplegic with no feeling or movement from the chest and shoulders down. Now, you know, prior to Will's accident, I had never really been through trauma. I hadn't lost a parent or a loved one or had touched by cancer or anything like that. And you know, spinal cord injury is such a unique injury in that there is no option. It's not like, okay, well, do we try that treatment or do we try that treatment? Or it's from the day it happens, it's like, okay, now you renovate your house, you get carers, you know, it's like you are thrown into this hurricane. And there's a part of me, this part of me that just never accepts that something can't be done. I never accept that. So, you know, it was so foreign, people talking to me about, you know, absolutes like no recovery, carers for life. You know, it just didn't make sense to me. And so one of the tools that I perfected in spinal cord injury, and I think I take that into every part of my life, I call it chunking down. Which is where we take a big picture and we just break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I just go piece by piece by piece by piece. So that's where I get from the piece is I'm stuck with the athlete. So the next piece is, well, I'll go into trading. And the next piece, so it's just constantly pieces.
Yeah.
It's not chasing fulfillment. It's just a momentum.
Well, also you're not chasing something that's too big that makes you overwhelmed, which is what most people do, you know. But what you're describing is you are already fulfilled because you're doing it you're not doing it as, you know, you're not doing it as an end game. You're just doing it because that's who you are. You always look for things in an optimistic way, which is fulfilling. Because if you weren't fulfilled, you'd be the opposite. You'd be feeling depressed. You know, and you just said that then that you don't take absolute. So I don't think you would allow yourself to not make sure that you explored every possible option.
I think you have to, there absolutely has to be a level of fulfillment in that you're willing to keep taking action in something. So I am very driven by helping someone perform at their best. You know, I noticed when I was a student under you and we would do practice sessions, when I was working with, you know, an at-home parent who was suffering extreme anxiety, I would come out of the session feeling very drained, feeling like I didn't do a good job, feeling like unsure, feeling really unfulfilled. When I sat with an athlete, it was instant energy. It was instant, like intuition. I just knew the answer. It was I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to prepare for the sessions. It was very work. So I have a sense of fulfillment when I'm helping someone to bring their best, as opposed to what you do so well, which is.
Well, I think we just do the same thing, but we're just aligning ourselves to what it is that we can do. I would have no idea what to do with an elite athlete, right? So because you do know, and I think that's the beauty of what we do, is that we seek out that fulfillment by being aligned, where, like I said before we started, a lot of people don't even think about it. They just go to work and then they get to 60 and they go, what have I just done? Right? But you feel that fulfillment is you're doing it organically by helping people.
Yeah, I think the difference between me and some other people who sit in places that, you know, they're not aligned with, they're not getting fulfilled with, I don't look at the risk. You know, I don't look at what could go wrong, or what if this happened, or what if that happened. I just am driven by something that could serve me better.
Yeah.
And I think,
But can I just interrupt? You also don't realize that you are the chunking down thing. You don't sit and risk because there's no such thing as risk in your version, because you just chunk down and you're always finding a way to get out of that situation. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful model to follow.
Yeah, so there was a moment in the Royal Children's Hospital. It was a very clear moment for me. Like, I remember where I was standing and what went through my head. And I remember thinking that if I broke down this injury into one moment at a time, there is no moment that is too big for me. Like, there is every moment, the struggle sits on either side of that moment. So the struggle sits on, why did we let him go to the beach? Or the struggle sits on the other side of the moment in, what if he never gets a job? What if we're carrying him forever? But in the moment, there is no moment too big for me. And I remember thinking, if I break this down moment by moment until I'm 70, I'm going to survive this injury. And so what I would do is I would approach Will's door, for instance, and I would stand at his door of his hospital room, and I would take this really deep breath. And I would literally say to myself, right here, right now, I'm walking into a hospital room and I'm having a conversation with my son. That is all that's happening. What's not happening is we're not going broke. My other kids haven't gone off the rails. I haven't, got depressed. None of those things are happening. What's happening is I'm just walking in and having a conversation with my son. And I would literally go in and tick that moment off.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I wasn't striving to make that moment great or fulfilled or amazing. It's just like, just do this moment. Whatever is required to bring my best in this moment, I'll do that. And then I'll do the next moment, and then I'll do the next moment, and then I'll wake up.
It's interesting, because that just means that you're in the moment and you're actually living life in the moment, which is such a striving place that people want to get to. So can I ask you the next question? So in regards to your values, is there any particular moral that you'll never break? That, that thing that that it's organically in you and you're always going to follow through on that, like a moral or a value that you have inside yourself. Some people say, my value is to save money and to be secure, but then they spend money. Or someone says, I don't, it's the things that people say they want to do, but then they do the opposite. What thing do you think that that you always follow?
I always hear those people that answer those questions, and I think, do they really? Like, do they really? Like, do they really?
Well, you've sort of already answered. You know that you've already answered it in a way that you never give up. That's your moral. Yeah, you're always going. So that's, I don't know.
Something that I am always is always front of mind for me, and is always not negotiable for me in terms of me bringing my best, is listening. And I don't mean just listening to the words, but listening behind the words, around the words. I feel like whatever scenario I'm in, if I listen, then I'm going to be okay.
Okay.
Now, I know that's not a value.
No, that's okay. It's something that you'll always do, one thing that I do love about you is that you are consistent, and that's something I've not really seen a lot, like to your level. You know what I mean? Like, people change, but you're consistent. You have a very, very clear mind. Like the way you described going to the hospital and standing at the door, like I can picture you doing that, and it's consistent. Yeah. I know that you've done that before because I've seen you do it. Yes. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't do. I think a lot of people, exactly what you said earlier, a lot of people say they are, but they're not really telling the truth, because they're basing it on what they think the answer should be, not what is really happening.
Yeah, I really am very, like, when I say sometimes I question, am I weird? Sometimes I question, like, am I not clear on my values enough? Am I not had a spirit? Like, sometimes I hear people in our network and they have all this stuff and they say all these words, and I think, and I start to panic in thinking, I don't do any of that. I just take action. I critique it. Is it right? Is it where I need to go? I take more action. But why I say that listening thing is because I am always so grounded in, how do I help this person? What are they saying to me? What do I need to bring in this moment? And I think maybe it's because I don't get too attached to these concepts of, we should be living like this and doing that, it helps me a little bit. And
Yeah.
you know,
I get it. And so I don't know if this next question's going to help because it's literally saying the opposite of what you just said. So I guess because again, the beautiful humbleness that you've got is that people do. I met Dusty Martin, right? And I mentioned you, and he literally like fell over how much he was literally falling over just telling me how much he loves you. So people have got a perception of you, which I know that you're humbled, right? But what I want to know, and I want you to be honest with yourself, is what do you think what do you feel is the truth for you in regards to what you want to label yourself as? What's your label that you want to give yourself for you versus, because you're getting all this amazing praise and all that, which I know is true. I just want to know what you think about yourself.
I think about myself that I am very genuine in my care for people. So I think why a Dusty can say that is because they feel that from me. Like I genuinely care about, and now I channel that into the performance space, but I genuinely care how that person performs because I know that we're on this earth, and if I can help someone bring their best to a moment, then that's enough for me. And I genuinely am invested in that. That gives me a lot of joy. Well, there you go. That gives me fulfillment. That is what drives me. And maybe that ticks off that values question, that my value is to care, that I genuinely
I mean,
care.
darling, you totally live in your values. I'm telling you totally do. Because, and so your thing about service is totally the title that you feel comfortable in, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. I think we all have a right on this earth to show up with our best. Like I get nearly distressed seeing that we all have so many challenges to bringing our best. We all have so much to offer. We all have so much to put forward, much more than we think we do. And if I can help you see that, get in touch with that, and give you the tools as how you can actually show up with your best, I think we all deserve that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you did. That's what you did for me. Like you were able to see how.
I know, but thank you. But see, what you do is that you really embed in it. So you don't really. It's like there's a part of you. You're there, but it's not like you're the main focus because your focus is others, which fulfills you through that. And I don't think I've ever seen that before. Because a lot of people like to talk about themselves, but you are. Every question that I ask you, it's always about other people, which is just so humbling and beautiful. It is. And I have to tell you these things because I know that you don't like hearing them. I mean, so try and answer this question from your perspective, my darling. So why do you think you matter?
Why do I matter?
Yeah. Why do you matter?
You can't ask me these questions.
Yes, I can.
Why do I matter? Well, I think we all matter because we're just us. Like we're just here. We're all worthy of being here, being human. We all matter. We're all worthy. And I don't think I matter any more than anyone else.
Well, so you're not saying that what you do, what you just described in the last answer, is part of your purpose, which is a reason why you matter. That you're here to actually help these people to transition into greatness.
Oh, okay. I've never looked at it like that.
I'm talking about. This is so obvious, but you think it's not important because you're humble. This is what I love about you, and people will relate to what we're talking about here because you are totally driven towards others, which is so the reason why you don't look at that question in the way that I see it.
I always say to athletes particularly who want to like say, oh, I've got to thank Emma. I'm always like, don't give your power away. Like, because I did not do this for you. You did this, you created this success. You had the courage to listen to me and implement what I'm talking about. So this is your doing. So own that, take that. And I guess if I'm looking through my eyes from that perspective, then I own the fact that I'm prepared to do the work, and I'm
Yeah.
prepared to, and always have been. Like, I have a son with spinal cord injury, and I'm at the hospital all day, and I'm volunteering at a football club as well as having a corporate life. I've missed coffee mornings with mums at school, and I have a very small network of select friends because I don't, I have sacrificed so much because I get so much joy out of seeing someone else bring it. Yeah, so I'm not going to give that power away, but I am not creating the success in these people.
Yeah.
They're creating the success themselves.
Yeah. So I know the answer to this question, but again, I'm just curious. So say, for example, I know you are well known. Say, for example, overnight you become a global sensation and everyone wants Emma. Everyone wants a piece of Em, right? Do you think that you will always have the ability to maintain this version of yourself? Like, I sort of know the answer. I just want to share it with the audience.
Well, like, for instance, I think in one of the main papers on the weekend, there was a half-page article, big picture of me. I haven't read it.
I'll have to go find it.
I disassociate from a lot of that stuff because it gives me anxiety. So I don't think it would change me in the slightest, because
I agree.
I don't attach to it at all, because I'm not seeking it. It's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think if I was doing what I was doing for the notoriety and the fame, well, the way I approach what I do would look very different to what I am, what I currently do. And then I would change. But, one of the ways that I work is I speak to athletes like before they race, after their race, the night before, I don't have one appointment every 2 weeks with an athlete. It's like, if you're working with me, we are
in touch
24/7, right? Because my belief is that if I can help someone see the learnings in the moment when they're experiencing it, when they're feeling that, when they're challenged by that situation, then it's a learning that they now have. Whereas an athlete 2 weeks later, they'll look at it very differently, and they won't be able to tap into those intense feelings. So I'm constantly saying to an athlete, you must check in and go, does it feel right to speak to Emma? If it does, great. If it doesn't, you don't owe me an apology. You don't let me know. It's all about them. Like, all the way I work is all about the athlete. And I never want that to be different, because then I won't be as good at what I do.
I mean, I think I know what you're saying in the answer. So, for example, when you met, say, Dusty, I'm guessing that you just felt like Emma. You didn't really go, oh, it's Dusty, because you are meeting these people. As the notoriety thing is about the fame, is the other coaches, they use that, because when you go on their website, it says Dusty, but for you, that's not important. So that again shows me that the fulfillment isn't about a famous athlete, even though they're elite. It's about the connection. Would that be right?
Oh, 100%. Like, I just have never understood that with
other coaches.
Oh no, with famous people. I never understood how people look through a lens of, oh, that's Dusty, because I don't look through that
really
lens.
Yeah. So are you open to, do you watch TV or media? Do you get influenced, or are you saying that you just don't think about that? Because that's how people get influenced, I guess, is the media machine makes that person unattainable, but you're seeing them as equal.
I mean, when I was an athlete, I was at the Australian Institute of Sport, and so there were lots of well-known names, and you see all their flaws, and you see how imperfect they are and how normal they are. And then my first job was in athlete management and athlete media and that. So again, you see them as people. So, and I would always look at people who put them up at the pedestal, and I think these people are selfish, they're this, they're that, they're everything. So I always just look at the person, and remember, I'm helping people when they're trapped in fear of failure and fear of other people's opinions and a fear of being the best. And so when I meet someone, I'm just coming to that listening, I'm hearing their pain and I'm hearing their struggle. And because it's a space that I'm so comfortable in, I just drop into that very intuitive sort of helping place Whereas when I'm not working with someone in that high performance environment, I'm pretty bloody useless as a coach, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm really,
Yeah.
I don't
So does
feel
that
it.
mean that you understand? Like, I'm not asking you to say who's better or not, but do you feel that those people that are coaching that are about the notoriety, do you think that they don't have, if they don't have that connection that you're talking about, and it's all about their fame in a way, do you? Have you seen other coaches that you think don't have that insight because it is about them rather than the athlete? You know what I
I,
mean? Like, you know how
yeah,
when people make it about them.
yeah. I haven't seen that. What I've seen is that we assume that the more famous the athlete or the more elite the athlete, that we presume that they don't have the same struggle that we have.
Right.
Or they don't have the same fears that we have. And so when we go in with a lens that they're this superstar, I think we don't really hear what they're saying because we think they're above. So we
Yeah.
miss helping them with what they need, and we're coming in with our perceived ideas of what a superstar would be fearful of, when really it's no different to what you and I are fearful of.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Like, I always wonder why people don't respect a person, famous person, when they're out in the public. Like,
Yeah,
what gives people the right to go up to someone having dinner?
yeah,
And you know what I mean? Like, they're eating. It's as if the famous person doesn't normally go out for dinner, and
yeah,
they're going out for dinner
yeah,
for fans and all that.
yeah.
So
But we
yeah,
somehow think like the famous athlete is not worried about what other people think.
performance and all that. Yeah,
And it's like, yes, they are. And if you actually stopped and listened to them like you would listen to someone who wasn't famous, you would hear that.
yeah.
And so I think, I think I just always come in with listening to them as a person, not as a famous athlete, and you'll hear what you need to hear.
Yeah.
And
It's human. It's human. That's
yeah,
what people forget.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you think that this needs to change? Like, do you think it's ever going to change, or do you think this is just the way the structure of fame is?
I think it's
You know,
getting
like,
worse
yeah,
because,
it's
like,
getting worse with
you know,
social media.
social media, and so we're always chasing fame. We're getting bombarded with this information that says fame equals more of stuff, better life, better
Money,
access, more privilege, so the social media makes us put them on a higher pedestal, and then we're chasing that, and it's, I don't know, I wonder some days if we're going to look back on social media like we
of
look
course
back
we are.
on smoking and go, what
Yeah,
were we
yeah.
thinking?
So, I mean, like, did you hear that in 2020, the number one job prospect for people under the age of 18 was famous?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
I,
famous became the number one job.
yeah.
It's not even a job, you know. So that means that a lot of young people are doing exactly what you're saying. So before we finish, the last
No,
question.
no, hang on.
Oh,
I need to say something about
okay.
what gives me so much joy is most of my clients are men. That just has happened, young men, just they're the sports I've fallen into. So they're sort of, 18 to sort of 30-year-old men. And there is this joy of watching them go through the process of self-awareness, and then they open this self-awareness, and then they become really curious, and then they start to challenge ways that they're thinking and doing things, and you watch them slowly go on this journey. And it's a journey that I think we don't think famous people need to go through, right? Well, they're an elite footballer, so haven't they got the
They're like they're born into it. The people think that
yeah,
they're born into it. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like watching them, and so you watch them go through this journey, and they nearly turn their back on the things that they've been told is good, the fame and the all the staff and the social media and the blah blah blah. You watch them actually see it for what it is and turn their back on it and actually get grounded into stuff that really brings them joy.
yeah,
And I've seen that now in a number of athletes that I've worked with, and then you see their relationships change, and then this starts trickling out how they deal with their managers and how they're trying to teach the people in there who surround them, and they're trying to teach their partners. And it's like joyous to watch these young men who we put on this pedestal, and they didn't choose that. They were put up there probably from when they were 10 years old, and they just were really, really good at kicking a football. And they have never been taught this stuff. And when you open their eyes, it's like they're craving it. And, it's just...
and that's, again, you can see it in the way you're talking, that's what fulfills you.
Yeah.
Just so there's an equality to that, I'm guessing that some of the guys may not necessarily cope very well with it, the fame.
Oh, yeah. Like,
I'm just thinking about Ben Cousins and things like that. Like he was elevated and he had to, that's just the first one that came to mind. Like, do you think that there is a lot of people that may go through mental health problems in that arena?
I think it's nearly a guarantee.
Right. Okay.
And, and this is what people don't get. Like, as humans, we're wired for survival, and one of the greatest threats to our survival is fear of being abandoned and not being connected, and not, and so all of us have this fear of other people's opinions, and we think because you become famous that you escape that. No, you don't. You just carry that, but now you have so many more eyes on you. And so that drives a level of fear and danger and anxiety in you that is, you can't switch that off. You can't switch our biological wiring off to not care what people think about you. And, it pains me so much that we now, through social media, have access to these high performance people and these high profile people, and we think that we can say anything to them because they're famous and they're privileged and they've got money, that won't hurt them.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course it does. And of course it then plays out in feelings of anxiousness, and those feelings of anxiousness change the way we think, and those changed thoughts then change our mental health. Of course it does. And it's like, who's on the side for the famous person?
Yeah.
And that's where I think I fly my flag of going, no.
Well, you're sort of the one that does that in a way. You get to listen and guide them. And I'm hoping that are there other versions of you at the other sports places, or is this something that is a new thing where because you do bring a uniqueness of, it's not like this hardcore masculine energy that was historically connected to sport. It's this understanding and empathy and listening. These are sort of new skills that have come around in the last, say, 30 years. Do you feel that other sporting institutes are watching?
Oh, definitely. 100% the landscape is changing, and I think Richmond Football Club has been incredible in, role modelling to not just other sporting clubs but organisations, as this is the way you are vulnerable, you have empathy, you connect people, and the results will take care of themselves. There's literally a high performance recipe, and it has nothing to do with what you do in the gym. And well, of course you do, but everyone's ticking the gym off. Everyone's
it's all about here, isn't it?
Yes, but it's not this fear-based go harder, push more. It's this it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. Let's, wrap you up. Let's make you feel safe. And when we make you feel safe, then you can perform at your best. And, I think it's an interesting one because, of course, there's so many sports psychologists. So there's a massive network of sports psychologists. So you would go, well, why does Emma, who's mindfulness and hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, why does she have more ground? And it's purely because the stigma around mental health. I see a psychologist, this is how an elite athlete thinks. I see a psychologist and it's weak and I won't get selected because they'll think something's wrong with me. I see a performance coach, it's seen as taking my performance to a higher level, a greater level. So I'll lock in with her. And same, like, I'm not a psychologist, but we're both giving them tools.
I know, but I think that this is again another humbling thing that you don't see is that it's what I just said at the beginning of the question is that you bring in this element that other people don't actually they may not be connected to themselves. The psychologist probably is basing everything on clinical, while you're basing it on connection, on listening, on reality. And that is what's resonated. And so, one thing that I'm curious about, Em, and again, this is definitely the last question, is why is the football club understanding that what you just said can be so useful to the world? Like, why are they passing that on to their members and their fans? So we all start to change, because what you're describing with us understanding the athlete, I think a lot of people don't really know, and they need to learn. So how do we teach them that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because fame is, what you described there was beautiful. And I'm hoping a lot of people listen to this podcast interview, because I think people need to be told what you just said, so they understand that otherwise what they do is they think that person's stuck up, or they give them labels, these athletes, but people just need to say to them, we need to understand that they're humans, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of that.
No, there doesn't. And I mean, certainly, the boys at Richmond are very invested in, helping their partners and their families, and like this. And the club is who our incredible leader Peggy O'Neill, she's very invested in taking it further, and they do that. But there's, of course, ultimately they're also trying to win a premiership, so they've got these divided focuses. We can do that, but that's not our primary purpose. Our primary purpose is to win a premiership. And so it's like this dance area by giving to others, but also doing enough to win a premiership. And it's certainly why for me, I'm now a lot of my work trying to put it into online programs to help more people effectively. I've got a program for schools now, so because students, this is massive for students. They're trapped in that, so much that they've got to do, and I've got to achieve, and I've got to get right. And Joey,
it sounds like you're doing it. It's like you're globally going to be. You're doing it, like you said, chunk by chunk. So I went to the end and thought, how do we get everyone to know? But you've actually explained that you're actually doing it already, because I think that your message, it needs to be either a book or something that will target the general public unaware. Because they don't, you think, again, it's because they think about themselves, and we all want to feel like we're being touched by a superstar, but you made me realize that they're just humans, just like us.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think what I do well in my work is I identify patterns. Like, I see a pattern, and then I find that I'm blessed that I've worked in football, because what football does, I liken it to reality TV, in that I can give an athlete a tool, and then I can see on Saturday in a measurable environment whether that works or not. So you have a client,
yes, okay,
and you send them home, and you just rely on them feeding back, oh yeah, I feel a bit better. I can see you ran faster, you made less fumbles, it's there, and it's every week, right?
Yeah.
So that for me has enabled me to really refine things that work and that don't work. So I look at the general public and I'm like, they don't know what they don't know. And we put students in schools, and then they come out the other end reciting the dates of war and maths formulas, yet they don't have basic emotional regulation. And I started to remember, I said there was a woman I saw, she had this program at the private school that inspired me. I started to get students from her school who were elite rowers coming to me, and they're in a boat and they're panicking. And it's like, you've been since prep in this, mindfulness program, what's going on? But they couldn't connect the dots between the performance environment and this stuff that they're learning as well-being.
Yeah.
So I flipped it on the head, and this is why I think I've been successful in sport, and go, let me help you perform at your best. Let me give you tools that will perform at your best, because I know you're going to do them if it means that you're going to speak publicly better, kick the ball better, row a boat faster. I know you're going to comply with these rules, these tools. The tools that you've been given in the mindfulness program since prep, you're like, I'm not listening to this. So I'm very big, if we can get people in the public doing their jobs better and giving them tools to do that better, then they'll go home to their family better. Then they'll go home, and have more awareness in their social group. because they're actually invested in learning it into a space which, and I know we shouldn't be striving for promotions and
No, I mean,
targets, but
I mean, the one thing that Dusty made me feel when I spoke to him is that you made it seem just like it was normal.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
and that's what I love, is that I think people always look at this sort of work as a problem. I've got a problem, but you don't do that. You listen, and it's just normal, and we're working towards something. So I've been incorporating that in my work just recently as well, because I think we have to look at the fact that the world's changed, and we have to stop saying the thing with social media that you brought up. My issue with social media is that it's really focused on things being good, right? So young people don't really know now how to cope with things that are bad, because it's look at the perfect picture. Look at this. They've got 1 million likes. And so people see that and they're not understanding the whole of it all. So that's the thing that we need to start focusing on, is like, how do we get people to look at the things that they're uncomfortable with and learning to accept that, so they can accept the wholeness, you know? One last statement that you want to make, because again, I could talk to you for hours, and
okay.
I know we've gone over already.
No, I really, this is very important that I say.
Okay.
So I believe all of us, those dumb public that you're talking about.
No, yeah, I'm aware.
We're going, our life is like we're trapped in a storm. And so this storm is pretty bad. We wake up, we go outside, we get wet, we get beaten around, we come home, and we get up the next day and we go again. Yeah. And sometimes in your life, that storm gets upgraded to a hurricane, not for everyone, but for some people. And, my life got upgraded to a hurricane in an instant. And you can't go out in the hurricane. You won't survive the hurricane. So you have to find the stillness in the center of that hurricane pretty fucking quickly. And so when you find that, you do that through survival, because if you don't get still and you don't get just clear and you don't get out of the noise, you will not survive. So I want everyone to know that sometimes it is far easier to find that calmness and stillness when your life's upgraded to a hurricane. It is very hard to do it when you're in the storm. It's so hard. And you might be finding, the listeners might be finding that they want to change and they don't like their job and they're not fulfilled. And why can't I take action like Emma? And why she just gets stuff done? And I wish I could do that. But sometimes when you are getting out of a hurricane, it is a lot easier than when you're just getting wet and beaten around a little bit each day. Yeah. And so be kind to yourself and know that it's not actually easier when you've got nothing on the line. It's easier when you've got your son's whole survival, your family's whole survival on the line. Of course you're going to take action. So just be kind to yourself, break it down into tiny little bits and just make one little bit okay. Just take one little change. Take action on one thing and, just critique that, look at that. How did I go? What direction do I need to go to? But do not sit and think, why can't I be like that? Because I had a massive hurricane I had to get out of. Yeah. And that makes it easier sometimes.
Well, that was, God, I love you. But because that is a really good, I've always wanted to find a way to explain that, and you've just explained it. Because I used to believe that the hurricane is what I needed to change, but not everyone gets that. And in reality, people can learn to find that stillness without a hurricane, and that prepares them for anything anyway. Because a hurricane isn't fun, is it, Em?
No, I was just about to say, you don't want to wish the hurricane on you. You want to learn these skills without the hurricane. And they're just tools. They're just tools. There's a tool called chunking down. There's a tool called, acceptance. There's a tool called, they're tools. And you might go, well, where can I learn them? On podcasts like this, actually booking in to see someone like yourself. There are ways to find these tools. You don't have to wait for a mental health crisis or have a problem. That's the biggest thing. It's not about having a problem. It's about getting a tool to get you to that next chunk, that next chunk, that next chunk, and just break it down step by step and keep course correcting, and eventually you'll end up somewhere. I don't know. Might not be a grand fulfillment or enlightenment or, blah, blah, blah. That
Flashing lights. Yeah. I mean, that's beautiful because so we're still talking. I feel that my hurricane taught me, I got rid of all my stuff. I actually don't really own anything.
Right.
And I really quite like that. And I can't believe how much bullshit I used to spend every week because I felt I needed it. But I'm going to say goodbye. I love you. And you are literally my you always have been, but you're my hero. You're my guru. And I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and talking over the time and sharing all this stuff, because I think it's really inspired me. So I'm hoping it's inspiring our listeners. So thanks, Em.
Well, thank you for believing in me when I just literally was a student with no idea.
Well, I'm going to answer that question the same way that you answer it. I did nothing. You did it all. All right, everyone. You've been listening to the EUDAIMONIA Connection podcast. That was the wonderful Emma Murray. I'm going to put some information down there, hopefully that you can follow and find her and maybe stalk her. I don't know. But just be mindful, this podcast is out every Wednesday. And I wish everybody the best in finding their own fulfillment. Till next time. Bye-bye.